Hello, my name is Sherman Chin, and today I'm going to talk about the science behind the movie Tenet. Now, I wish I watched a video like this before I watched Tenet, because when I was in the cinema watching Tenet, I was bored to death at the beginning. I couldn't understand anything, it doesn't make sense. I will start from the part where it didn't make sense for me. There are spoilers here, but I think it's still important for you to understand this concept so that you don't walk out of the cinema like I nearly wanted to. So the thing is, the first part is the bullet that is reversing. So you will see bullets reversing in Tenet. How does that make sense? Because in Tenet, it's based upon this scientific theory called entropy, and this scientific theory called Maxwell's demon. Well, it's not a theory, it's more like analogy, right? In Maxwell's demon, a scientist basically made a hypothesis about two rooms in which one room is, well, both rooms are actually having entropy. Now, what is entropy? Entropy is the breakdown of particles to a lot of pieces. So basically, if you break a glass, that's entropy. If you shoot a bullet and the bullet destroys something, that's entropy. Like basically, from object of order, let's say like my human body, I die, and then my body parts get spread out. So the whole universe is going through the process of entropy. So basically you can say entropy is like the process of dying. And why is it dying? Is because the particles are actually getting more energy and spreading out. So how do you remove entropy? Basically in Maxwell's demon, room A and room B, blue and red, if you actually check on YouTube or Google them, you will see that there's this theory of Maxwell's demon, and they actually use blue and red as an analogy. So blue is like the colder part, which has less energy and which is a reversal of entropy, and red, for example, is the more power, that has more entropy particles, or particles that move faster, so they are breaking apart faster. So what happens is that the demon which is in between the rooms is able to separate the faster particles and the slower particles. So it is known in this thermodynamic sort of what do you call that, theory, that the demon will be able to move this entropy particles, which are the particles that are moving fast, into another room, which will make them move slower, right? So it separates the fast moving ones and put them in the room, to put the fast moving ones in one of the rooms, and the other room then has the slow moving ones. So basically you are just moving the energy from one room to the other room. So you will see that concept in Tenet. Now when you see that in Tenet, it means that you're actually sort of reversing time. But from my research, it shows that entropy, scientifically, does not correspond or does not cause the reversal of time. But in this movie, it's assumed that entropy causes, if you reverse entropy, it also reverses time, which makes no sense. So basically that part where it looks like you're using the force to reverse the bullet makes no sense. So if you can accept that, you can accept the rest of the movie, right? So the thing is, can you explain this movie with other scientific concepts? So the other scientific concept that I want to bring up is the concept of time. So there's reversal of time. Now in Tenet, time is going forward, or in the real world, time is going forward, right? And when you reverse time in Tenet, it's represented by this symbol, Tenet, right? So the thing is, it's really cool. Tenet is a palindrome. If you spell it forward, it's spelled as T-N-E-T, and you spell it backward, it's also spelled as T-N-E-T. So it's the reversal of time. But as you can see here, there is this middle part. You join this where the things that goes forward in time reverses, right? And in this middle part, it sort of clashes, and then it joins together, and this is where the particles sort of destroy each other, and that's what happens in Tenet. So the whole concept of the movie is that basically with time going backward, it destroys the particles back, the previous particles, because it has to do with entropy here. So one room A or room B, clashes with the other room. So room A, room B clash with each other. Eventually, it causes the particles to meet each other and destroy each other, sort of like matter and antimatter. So the thing is that it's not so scientifically based, but if you look at the concept of time, time actually sort of, it's not, okay, first of all, let's define time. Time is like a passage of action, right? When you do something, time passes, and then we measure that time according to the clock. So the thing is that clock movement is like a measurement of entropy, right? Because entropy keeps advancing. And the thing is, when you reverse entropy, you do not actually reverse time scientifically. But time itself is relative according to Einstein. Now, Einstein explained this in two theories, which is number one, the theory of special relativity. Now, with special relativity, Einstein said that if you move fast, then time slows for you. Now, how can this be? So, if you look at, say, clocks, okay, that are taken into space, like the International Space Station, they are actually slower when they are brought back to Earth. You know why? Because the International Space Station is moving really fast around the Earth, right? So, special relativity says that if you move fast, your time slows down. So, if you were to travel in a rocket and come back to Earth again, then you're actually going to be younger, right? A rocket, let's say, it travels very fast into space and reverses and come back. Then you're going to be younger because you have been moving faster than anyone on Earth. Does that really confuse you? It should, because time is relative, right? So that is based on Einstein's special relativity theory, which has been proven, by the way, by using clocks, right? Atomic clocks, so that they bring up into space and then they bring it back. You put them in the International Space Station and you notice that the time actually slows down compared to the clock on Earth, right? So it slows down like a few milliseconds, I think, every month. So it's not much because it travels fast but not fast enough. So if you travel on a spaceship that can reach the speed of light, because light is constant speed, then you actually live a much longer life because time has slowed down for you. Now, can you understand that? The thing is, when you go to space and you speed up time, it means that this small little cup here has now an increased volume of time. So think of it this way. See, now time travels a little bit in this small cup, but time has to travel more in this big cup. As you can see, even if I put my finger here, it's distorted. So time is actually distorted when you go fast. So that's a very amazing concept. You can actually go on YouTube and search more about it. I was inspired to search more about it when I watched Tenet. I learned about it in school, but I didn't really remember all this. But because of Tenet, I went to check up on this. And the best part is, Einstein actually came up with a second theory, and it's called the general relativity theory. So, special relativity tells you that the faster you go, the slower time becomes. But a big object like Earth actually slows down time as well. So the thing is, with a big object, it slows down time, like because it sort of like has more gravity to it. Well, okay, Einstein didn't explain it that way. So basically, it's just saying that a big mass actually slows down time. So I think that is E equals to mc squared. So mg equals to mass times acceleration. So the thing is, with that, with the big object slowing down time on Earth, if you are closer to the center of the Earth where the gravity is stronger, then you actually age slower because time has slowed down. If you stay on top of the mountain, then you actually age faster. Now, I didn't know that until I searched. That was like amazing information for me. So I'm thinking, so why on a satellite, on the ISS, the International Space Station, you actually grow old slower, but you're actually further away from Earth. So you should be actually growing older faster, right? Because you're away from the strong gravity But now, remember, I just mentioned to you, the special relativity theory tells you that the faster you go, then time also slows down. So it's like in those Star Trek movie where you jump to warp speed and everything like goes slow, right? So that actually has a stronger effect than the second theory, which is the general theory of relativity, or general relativity theory. So the special relativity theory actually overrides, or not really overrides, it has a higher priority or higher effect, higher effect, that's the thing, than the general relativity theory. So with that in mind, you can see in Tenet, these concepts, right? The thing is, not only does the slower time affect the normal time, it goes in reverse. So that part makes some sense in Tenet. So time itself is relative, and you can actually go back in time. So there's another thing called quantum theory. Go search on it. In quantum theory, there are multiple sort of time periods or moments in time. So that's what's cool about it, is that when you go back in time, you do not go back to your own time, but you go back to a moment in time in the past where you already exist. So whatever you do does not really affect the future anymore, because what you did in the past actually affects the future where you've come from, right? And when you go back in time, you're either going back to another dimension, or you're going back to your point of like decision making that will affect your current time. So in that sense, you can only change the future for another timeline, which is like another dimension where you exist. Or if you go back to the same timeline where you exist, and then the thing is, the future is already there. That means you've already, like, you cannot change your future. And besides, when you go back in time, you cannot go back to the future. Like in Tenet, I didn't realize that you cannot go back to the future, because that time machine only goes backward in time. So keep that in mind when you watch Tenet, and then you will realize that that movie actually has a very sad ending, because a particular character dies. I'm not going to spoil it for you. If you realize that this particular character has been following the main character since the beginning of the movie. So it has a very sad ending that you don't really realize. Maybe the first time you watch it, you didn't realize that it's actually a sad movie, because that character didn't die at the end, but he's going to die because there's no way to change the past or the future. Basically, whatever you do would have been done already. So this concept is a bit different from, let's say, the Marvel movie like Avengers, where they go back in time and they change things. So, well, they create multiple dimensions. In Tenet, they did not talk about multiple dimensions. Remember that there are no multiple characters or multiple. You don't have the same characters, but actually they exist, right? The thing is, there's no like different timelines. There's only one timeline. But you go back and then you can see yourself again. Except that if you see yourself, you sort of like destroy yourself, like matter meeting antimatter. So those are the things that you should keep in mind when watching Tenet. There's one thing you should like look at when the girl explains, the scientist, when she explains the bullet going backwards on the board, there's Maxwell's demon all over it. So you know that it's actually based on Maxwell's demon theory. So you can go search for that, and you get a bit knowledge about entropy, and you will know how this theory works. But like I said, it doesn't make sense. So actually, to me, Einstein's theory of relativity makes more sense, because it tells you that time is not something absolute. And I've always been talking about time being not absolute in my Great Doubt philosophy website. You can go to greatdoubt.com to find out more about it. And if once you know that time is not absolute, then you will appreciate every moment that you are in, because every moment exists by itself. So right now, when I'm talking to you, this moment exists all the time. The problem is that we only travel in one direction, or we perceive that things happen in one direction in time, that we don't know that this time period is always existing. So the period now that you are watching me is always existing. If you are capable of going back in time, you can always jump to this time period, and for every action that I do, it causes another time period. So that is a really amazing concept to think about. So I'd like to leave you guys with that concept, and I'll see you guys in the next one. If you guys like me to talk more about this scientific stuff, although I'm not a scientific guy, you can always write down below. If you think I said something stupid, write down below in the comments. And I hope you guys like this. If you do, please give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Subscribe. See you guys. Thanks again. Bye.